Hello and welcome to Global Lens. I'm Parikshit Luthra. These are top global headlines we're tracking. U.S. government is headed for a shutdown, says Vice President J.D. Vance. White House seeks to pin the blame on Democrats who are seeking additional healthcare funding. Several parts of the federal government will close either partially or fully from the 1st of October, with funding set to lapse. U.S. President Trump proposes a 20-point peace plan to end the war in Gaza and return hostages to Israel. Leaders in the Middle East and Europe welcome the proposal. Hamas is studying the plan, which is vague on statehood for Palestine. Indonesia's school collapse kills 3 and leaves 100 people hospitalized. Rescue operations are underway, with over 39 people still trapped under the rubble. The two-story building, which was under construction, collapsed while people had gathered to pray. Our top focus this evening: U.S. President Donald Trump has unveiled a 20-point proposal to bring an end to the Israel-Gaza conflict. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has accepted the proposal. However, they do want security control for the foreseeable future. Hamas is believed to be studying it. Netanyahu warned that if Hamas rejects the plan or if it accepts and later backtracks, Israel will quote-unquote finish the job by itself, following which Trump said Israel would have his full backing. So what does the proposal entail? According to U.S. President, if both sides agree to it, the war will immediately end. Hamas has to release all remaining hostages, both dead and alive, within 72 hours of Israel's acceptance. In return, Israel will release 250 life sentence prisoners plus 1,700 Gazans who were detained after October 7, 2023. Full aid will be sent into the Gaza Strip, including rehabilitation of infrastructure and hospitals. Israel will neither occupy nor annex Gaza. The U.S. has said it will work with Arab and international partners to deploy a temporary international stabilization force in Gaza. Israeli defense forces will hand over the Gaza territory it occupies to this stabilization force. Under the proposal, Hamas will have no role in Gaza directly or indirectly, and all of its military infrastructure will be destroyed. So who would govern Gaza? It will be under the temporary transitional governance of a committee made up of Palestinians and global experts. This panel will be overseen by a board of peace headed by President Trump. Gaza will become a de-radicalized, terror-free zone. The United States will also establish a dialogue between Israel and the Palestinians to agree on a political horizon for peaceful and prosperous coexistence. However, the plan remains vague on Palestinian statehood. Netanyahu continues to strongly oppose any Palestinian statehood. The Palestinian Authority has welcomed the proposal, calling it a step towards unifying Palestinian land and institutions in the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. It added that the plan would open the path towards a just peace based on the two-state solution. Many leaders in the Middle East and Europe have also welcomed the proposal. Netanyahu also reportedly dialed Qatar Prime Minister Mohammed bin Abdul Rahman bin Jassim Al Thani from the White House to apologize for the Israeli strikes in Doha that targeted Hamas leadership. As per reports, he expressed regret for killing a Qatari security guard in the strikes. Joining us now is Ophir Diyan, Research Associate in the Israel-China Policy Center at INSS. Diyan has also served as an officer in Israeli Defense Forces, and also KP Fabian, former ambassador to Qatar, is joining us on the program. Ophir, if I can begin with you. If Hamas does not accept this proposal now in the next 2 to 3 days, what's going to be the next operation that Israel could launch?
So Israel doesn't need to launch a next operation. There is an undergoing operation happening right now to retake control over Gaza City, where it is believed that is the headquarters of Hamas, where a lot of their command and control centers are, where the vast tunnel network is, and where some of the hostages are believed to be held right now. So the plan suggests that if it is accepted by both sides, the Israeli army, the IDF, will withdraw from Gaza City, the operation that started just a few weeks ago. But if Hamas does not accept this deal, the IDF will continue full force in its operation that it's undertaking right now.
Right. There also seems to be some difference of opinion between Netanyahu and Trump when it comes to the security and securing Gaza for the foreseeable future. Netanyahu was clear that he wants security control around the perimeter, and he did not mention any timeline for that. So could you explain that there is a point of difference in contention?
Look, I'm now speaker for Mr. Trump or Mr. Netanyahu. Let me just say this. Before October 7th, Hamas used the vicinity of the Gaza-Israel border fence to plant explosives and to plant devices that helped it breach the fence on October 7th. So it's a totally rational Israeli demand to have a demilitarized and practically an empty perimeter across Gaza to make sure that Hamas operatives or other terrorist groups like the Palestinian Islamic Jihad and others are not coming closer to the fence again to plant explosives and other devices in the vicinity of the fence.
Right. Let me get in Ambassador Fabian at this point. Ambassador Fabian, do you think this plan is going to be successful? And what about the role of Arab Muslim states in governing and what happens in Palestine for the future? What caught our attention was the praise that Donald Trump showered on Asim Munir and also the Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif for supporting his peace plan. Does Pakistan have a role there?
Thank you. Pakistan was one of the 8 Islamic states that met President Trump. Pakistan has cleverly exploited the opportunity. As you know, when on the 9th of September, Israel carried out an attack on Doha, Pakistan Prime Minister was one of the first to reach there. So this is to be expected. But looking at the larger question, I would say that Hamas has no option but to accept it. I mean, they can ask for some changes, but they don't have any option to reject it because the Arab or Islamic states which have been supporting Palestine have accepted it. And as you said, the Palestine Authority has also accepted it. So Hamas has no choice. Also, there is a threat that should Hamas refuse to accept, then Netanyahu will continue with his, now I use plain English, I hope you will pardon me, genocide. And there is no way Hamas can take care of that. So having said that, will this plan work? Well, I think we have to look at it historically, because this plan speaks of a Palestinian statehood, which Netanyahu, after returning from Washington, has categorically stated that he would use force to prevent the emergence of a Palestinian state. Now, we have to take that seriously. And another thing is that, when the UK and others recognized the state of Palestine, Israel said, well, we shall do whatever we have to do to erase Palestine from the map. In other words, what they are doing now is dividing the West Bank into 2 and also increasing Israeli settlements there. And it is most surprising and to my mind most regrettable that this deal doesn't say anything about what Israel is doing on the West Bank.
Right.
In other words,
Ambassador Fabian,
Israel is free to do what it wants.
Right. Ambassador Fabian, when it comes to the two-state solution that India had also always been speaking about, what happens to that? This plan is not clear. When it comes to their stand on the two-state solution, Netanyahu has rejected it. What happens to that?
Well, I think we have to look at it historically. That is, David Ben-Gurion permitted violent action, in fact, terrorist action, by the Zionists to send the Palestinians into exile. If they didn't run away, they would be killed. So that was terrorism. Secondly, so many agreements have been signed, and I will only mention one, 1993 Oslo Accord, which was signed by Yitzhak Rabin. Netanyahu had opposed it. In fact, Netanyahu had incited people, militants, to murder him. And I say this with full responsibility because in 1995 March, there was a procession where Netanyahu was also there, and he is walking by the side of a coffin where it is written in so many words, this is Yitzhak Rabin. So that is that. And in any case, Liquid Party has said, that all territory between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean belongs to Israel.
Right.
So unless he is forced, he will never agree.
Okay, Ambassador Fabian, I'm going to come to you. Ophir, I know you have a point to make. I'm making one final question to Ambassador Fabian and coming to you for the closing remarks. Ambassador Fabian, what about India? Is it important for India to get involved with this peace plan to some extent? Can India afford to be out altogether?
No, India should not be out altogether. India should support this quote-unquote peace plan because the genocide has to stop. And my view is that Palestinians have to wait for some more time before they can, sort of start campaigning for a Palestinian state. And as regards Hamas, frankly, between you and me, they have said already that they are prepared to accept no role politically or militarily. And last point, Hamas, unlike Israeli propagandists, what they say, Hamas has accepted the state of Israel. They amended their charter, which accepted the 1967 borders for the state of Palestine.
All right. My final questions to Ophir Diyan. Ophir, now, when it comes to the future governance of Gaza, of Palestine, what's going to be the kind of governance structure? Would Israel want to have a complete control or a large say in how Gaza, how Palestine are secured for the future and who runs the place as well?
So I'm first going to answer your question, and then I'm going to address the completely wrong and misleading remarks made by the ambassador. First of all, no, Israel admitted during this conference between Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Trump that Israel is not going to control Gaza for the future. There was an agreement about a transitional government led by President Trump and by Tony Blair and others. So obviously Israel said it is not going to rule Gaza for the future. Obviously, given the circumstances, given what happened on October 7th, and given what happened in the past 20 years since 2005, when Israel withdrew completely from the Gaza Strip, including digging out the graves of Jews buried in the Gaza Strip, obviously rockets started flying out of Gaza into civilian areas in Israel. So Israel wants to have a say about the security guarantees it is going to get, that this situation is not going to reoccur. And now I must address the really wrong and misleading claims made by his honorary, the ambassador. Israel is not committing a genocide, that's first of all. There is no criteria for a genocide that this thing meets. It is a war. A war is an unpleasant and really bad occurrence, but it is not a genocide. Second of all, Hamas does not care for the least if there is a genocide, if there's no genocide. Returning hostages said that Hamas took food out of Gazans' hands and ate it in the tunnels while the Gazans are being starved to death. So I really don't think Hamas really cares if there's death for Gazans or not. And the third thing, I assume the ambassador does not read Hebrew. I'm not Mr. Netanyahu's attorney at law, but the coffin did not say Rabin, it said democracy, because it was a protest about sliding out of democratic practices.
All right. Ophir Diyan, thank you so much for joining us. Everyone has their own opinion.
And I wish everyone a peaceful days. And we just started the Jewish New Year, so Shana Tova, and a peaceful and quiet New Year.
Wish you all the peace, and we hope that peace arrives and is back in the region as well. Thank you very much, Ambassador Fabian, for
Amen and inshallah
on the program. Thank you very much, Ophir, for being with us. Let's move on and get our viewers news from around the world. Let's begin with YouTube, which has agreed to pay $24.5 million to settle a lawsuit which was filed by US President Donald Trump in 2021. Trump had sued the company for suspending his account after the riot in US Capitol. This makes it the third biggest social media company to settle their lawsuit by agreeing to pay in January. Meta had agreed to pay $25 million and X to pay $10 million. Moving on, Spotify founder Daniel Ek is set to step down as the company's CEO. He will be succeeded by co-CEOs Alex Nordstrom and Gustav Soderstrom, who are presently the company's co-presidents. The new CEOs will take over the position from Ek on the 1st of January. In a note to company employees, Ek stated he is not leaving, just making a big decision to define the future. Reports suggest he is likely to be named as the executive chairman of the audio streaming platform. Moving on, telecom and internet services in Afghanistan were down for the second day. This has affected some inbound and outbound flights to Afghanistan as they remain cancelled, and its main airport in Kabul looks deserted. However, Taliban has not given a reason for the shutdown. This service disruption comes just days after Taliban raised concerns around pornography. A fire in Namibia's Etosha National Park has been contained after a week-long struggle. As per BBC, the fire ravaged the wildlife reserve, killing 9 antelopes. The reserve is a home to endangered black rhinos and over 100 mammal species. The authorities had sent hundreds of soldiers and helicopters to contain the fire. It's time for a short break. Coming up on the other side, an exclusive conversation with Mai Ellen Stenner, ambassador of Norway to India. She talks about the India-EFTA trade agreement, which comes into effect from the 1st of October, that is tomorrow. Welcome back to Global Lens. India's global trade story is getting a big push. The free trade agreement signed last year with the European Free Trade Association, that's Norway, Switzerland, Iceland and Liechtenstein, officially comes into effect tomorrow. The deal will be launched in New Delhi with ministers from both sides and a high-powered 40-member business delegation from EFTA in attendance. The highlight, EFTA investors set to announce a $100 billion investment into India over the next 15 years, expected to create nearly 1 million jobs. The key focus areas include IT, clean energy, pharmaceuticals. For India, this is another milestone in its trade diplomacy. Remember, it has already signed FTAs with Australia, UAE and the UK. Now with EFTA in the mix, New Delhi is cementing its position as a major hub for global trade and investment. Joining me now to discuss this further is Mai Ellen Stenner, ambassador of Norway to India. I caught up with her earlier today and began by asking her about the importance and potential of the India-EFTA trade agreement.
Well, it is certainly a milestone for us as EFTA countries to enter into this trade agreement with India. India is becoming the biggest market for consumers in the world. India is the fastest growing economy, now the 4th biggest in the world. So for us, this is a crucial agreement, and we're very happy that it's now entering into force. And we also see that our companies are very interested in the treaty and in India.
Right. If I would ask you a follow-up question, in the backdrop of the European Free Trade Agreement being signed with India, could you give us a sense of what's the interest in European companies, especially Norwegian companies, in investing more with India, trading more, having closer business ties?
Well, I said India is the biggest market in the world. It will be the biggest consumer market. We are smaller markets comparatively. So of course, it's a disparity in one way. But all EFTA countries, they have very clear technologies, cutting-edge technologies in different areas. That means that there is complementarity between India and the EFTA countries. And for Norway, they are particularly in the field of energy and green energy in the maritime space.
All right, ma'am, if I were to also ask you about the product lines which would be traded between the two countries, how many product lines would literally come down to zero or negligible tariffs?
When it comes to product lines, about 80% of the product lines from EFTA countries to India have been waived tariffs, meaning that about 95% of the export from Norway, for example, to India will be without tariffs in the next few years.
All right. When we speak about the average Indian viewer, could you give us a sense which would be the top 3 or 4 items which would immediately become cheaper for an Indian consumer, those which we have been getting from Europe for decades, but will now start to get cheaper?
Well, the very good news is that Norwegian salmon will become much cheaper already now from October. It is one of the products that will, in frozen form, come down to zero immediately. So for the Indian consumer, there will be more salmon, and we also see that the seafood exporters from Norway are really looking to India, because also other seafood products will gradually come down when it comes to tariffs, and then hopefully be cheaper here in India. There are also, of course, other products from other EFTA countries, like watches from Switzerland, for example. And then there are a lot of products that we don't see as consumers that go into machinery in factories and different production areas.
Ambassador Stenner, we have seen how the European Free Trade Association has committed $100 billion in investments in India. Could you give us a sense of the sectors where these investments will go to?
Well, we have not actually committed $100 billion of investments, but we have committed to promote those investments over the next 15 years. We have also said that we believe that those investments will lead to 1 million more jobs in India. We really are working towards that end. And when it comes to Norway, that will be first and foremost in the maritime sector, and also when it comes to energy and green energy. It's probably well known that Norway is an energy power. We've had oil and gas produced in the last 50-55 years. We are now transitioning that into green energy, and it's exact same technology being used, and that's therefore also very good technology that is of interest here in India.
Right. Are agriculture and dairy products part of the EFTA agreement, or does it cover only niche areas in agri and dairy?
The agriculture is not part of this agreement.
And how does the EFTA open up the possibility of greater mobility of skilled professionals between India and the four-nation EFTA, such as Switzerland, Liechtenstein, Iceland and Norway?
The mobility is not part of the Trade and Economic Partnership Agreement either, but I can say for Norway particularly that Indians are more and more Indians are coming to Norway, particularly for work in the IT sector and also in the service industries. And that number is growing, so it's about 30,000 skilled Indians in Norway now for work.
You know, the India-EFTA agreement, Ambassador, is coming at a time when we are seeing restrictions on movement of professionals from India to the United States. Do you feel that markets such as Norway, Switzerland and other countries in Europe would now be a greater place for Indian professionals to move to? Do you think there is going to be a greater demand from these nations?
Well, that is of course up to Indians themselves to know whether they will then rather take the chance on coming to Europe and to Norway. They will certainly be welcomed in the same way as they have up until now, and more trade between our countries will probably also lead to more people-to-people contact both ways.
Right. When it comes to sectors where Norway is seeking closer ties with India, you mentioned energy as one area. Which would be some of the other areas of sectors which you're looking at closely or concentrating a lot on?
Well, the other sector that I mentioned was maritime area also. That's very important. We are a great maritime nation also since 100 years back. And we have traded with India also since 100 years back. And India is also a great maritime nation. the coastlines of our countries are almost the same, so this is one of the areas where we really are in parity. And we're also looking at sustainable solutions in other areas, for example, circular economy and waste management. Those areas are, of course, very important for us for a sustainable future and to have a better climate and environmental friendly environment around us. So those areas are also important.
Right. I'd like to speak to you about the Russia-Ukraine war. The United States is, while US has imposed almost 50% tariffs on India, 25% as an additional penalty for buying Russian oil, the President of the United States is also urging European nations to also impose very high tariffs on countries like China and India so that they can corner Putin into stopping the Russia-Ukraine war. What do you think about this approach? Because European nations have themselves been buyers of Russian energy. How do you see this approach of putting pressure on India and China, especially India?
Well, Norway is quite adamant in condemning the full-scale Russian invasion in Ukraine. So that is the bottom line for us. But on the other side, we don't believe in using trade for political means, and we do believe in free trade. And this agreement entering into force now on 1st October, it's the proof that we want to trade with India, and we want those solutions.
Moving on to the Gaza war, we have seen how President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu have announced a Gaza plan. How does Norway see this? Do you also feel and agree with the way Israel and Prime Minister Netanyahu want Gaza to be governed?
Well, Norway welcomes the new development that has come now from President Trump. It's a plan that is an important first step. But there is much work that remains, so we also need to see. And from Norway, a core message is that any solution that does not include Palestine and Palestinian participation and rights will lack legitimacy.
Finally, ma'am, if we were to ask you about the importance of this moment, we're looking at global trade tensions. In the midst of all of that, we have this trade agreement coming into effect. Could you give us the importance of this for India and Nordic countries in the years to come?
Well, this is a crucial moment for Norway, for the EFTA countries, and for Nordic countries. As you know, 2 of the Nordic countries are part of EFTA, Norway and Iceland, and we really are so happy about this treaty now entering into force. But together also with the other Nordic countries, Denmark, Sweden and Finland, we are working together to also welcome Prime Minister Modi to Norway soon for the Nordic India Summit.